Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Mac and Jack Show. My name is Jamie Pags. I am filling in for Mac, and I am here with Hall of Fame boxing writer and Jets enthusiast, Jack Hirsch. How are you, Jack?
Jets enthusiast. Hey, listen, the Jets at 7-4 here now, and there's controversy in New York over the quarterback position. None that you have in Philadelphia because of the flying start at Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, as of right now, he is still listed as the front runner to MVP over Patrick Mahomes.
We'll see how it plays out. I never like these MVP awards because they only take into account the regular season. It should run through the whole playoffs.
I think that it should at least. I don't know if it run through the entire playoffs, but because ultimately, I mean, unless that's why they have like playoffs MVP and Super Bowl MVP. But those things happen. But yeah, you do have a little bit of a controversy over there. Who would have thought that White would have come in and just blew apart? I mean, you guys didn't really play anybody last week, but he came in and scored 31 points. So it's a big
Yeah,
deal.
I mean, he was outstanding. But like you said, they played the Chicago Bears. It's one game. Let's settle down. They drafted Zach Wilson #2 overall in the draft. And to say Mike White's the franchise quarterback, they play the Minnesota Vikings this week, the Jets. They have Minnesota. If Mike White plays a really great game, then you have to think that going forward, he's the #1 quarterback on the team. They're not going to circle back to Zach Wilson unless Mike White really starts to fall down.
Yeah, I would think the same thing that he's got to have a little bit bigger body of work. And they're all excited there because what you guys have won more games this year than you have in the last 5 years combined.
Yeah. It's 7-4. If the Jets just go 2-4 the rest of the way in the remaining 6 games, the season's been a success. If they end up at 9-8, who could complain about the season? Especially if the Jets make the playoffs. They're kind of what the Eagles were last year, Pags. I mean, they're mirror image of the Eagles to an extent, with the exception of yourself, who thought the Eagles were going to have a winning record last year and could make the playoffs. No one else felt that way last year about the Philadelphia Eagles. And the Eagles wound up, I think it was 9-8 last year, snuck into the playoffs. And even though they got eliminated in the first game of the playoffs, they were playing with house money. No one in Philadelphia seemed to care that much because no one was expecting them to make a serious run at the Super Bowl. When I even joked around with you last year and I said, I predict the Eagles win the Super Bowl and Jalen Hurts is holding the MVP trophy there. And you thought it was really ridiculously far-fetched, but you enjoyed hearing me say it, but you couldn't envision it happening. But 1 year later, you can envision that with the Eagles, perhaps. It's a reality. It might happen, it might not. But something tells me about this Eagle team that they're going to come up a game short of the Super Bowl. I don't know. Something irks me that they're going to the NFC Championship game and someone is going to upend them, be it the Vikings. Don't get mad at me, be it the Cowboys. Someone is upending the Eagles in the NFC Championship game, even though they've been the best team in the NFC to date.
It wouldn't be a shock. It might surprise me, but it wouldn't be a shock. Something like that occurred. Uh, it's you mentioned possibly the Cowboys. I don't think the Cowboys are strong enough actually. The Vikings maybe just because it would be like a revenge style championship game if it made it there. 49ers are
49ers.
unproven a little bit and that's going to be a very interesting that would be a very interesting uh, conference championship. The Eagles against the Niners. And it
The
looks like they're
Niners
they're going to be heading into that.
If I had to pick one team to upend the Eagles, and I'm not saying anyone is going to upend the Eagles, I'm not making that prediction now. I don't know. Let's wait till the playoff rounds begin, and then I'll make my prediction who beats who there. But if I had to pick any one team in the NFC to prevent the Eagles from going to the Super Bowl, the team most likely it would be the San Francisco 49ers because they have a great, great defense. That defense could give Jalen Hurts some severe problems.
Well, I would agree with you. I think that they are the one. I mean, you know how I feel about this. That this is, that the games are won on the offensive and defensive line. That when you have skill players, the skill players can only do what they do after the offensive line and the defensive line does what they do. So, and that's the one defensive line that I feel can compete with us is from the 49ers. I think their offensive line is okay enough. It becomes a matter of who's going to score more points. And when we go up against, there are the defenses that we go up against don't have to be great if their offenses are keeping up with us. We've learned that in Detroit. We kind of learned that with Green Bay as well. The Titans are going to be a very interesting mix because they do have a better defense.
Wait, Pags, you got me confused in the AFC now. We're talking NFC.
Well, we're playing the Titans this week. That's the only reason why I'm even bringing them up in the mix. So the Titans are going to be a good challenge for the Eagles this week because their defense is a little bit stronger. And in comparison to the defenses that we've played over the last few weeks, even Washington, when they beat us, Washington's defense wasn't so amazing that day. That they won that game for other reasons. It wasn't their defense that did it. Any team that beats the Eagles is going to have to beat them on defense. The Eagles can't beat themselves. I feel like happened with the Washington game that the Eagles beat themselves. They lost focus. They had a few issues and problems. They had luck wasn't on their side that day because they did get a couple of bad calls, but I'm not blaming the refs on that. There was just too many other things that happened. But ultimately, you have to remain focused. And I said that they would win every game that they remain focused on. When the only team that could possibly beat them when they are a focused team is the 49ers, I think. That's the only team that I see. And then possibly Kansas City.
Let me ask you about the Jalen Hurts situation going forward. We're not talking about this year, of course, but we're talking about the next few years. Is it determined at this point that Jalen Hurts is absolutely the franchise quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles and for the next few seasons? Okay, he's absolutely the guy. In other words, if his contract was up and the Eagles had to make a decision to make him one of the highest paid QBs in the league, making him a true franchise quarterback, would they go ahead and do that? Or would the Eagles show a certain hesitancy, kind of maybe wanting to see a little more, maybe one more season? Because let's be honest, he's exceeded expectations.
Without a doubt. I mean, I said at the beginning of the year and at the end of last year that I needed to see 10 game him. Well, I've gotten 11 and they're 10-1. So, it doesn't matter. He almost single-handedly won that game yesterday or on Sunday against Green Bay. It was him that did it. And I know that the Eagles are trying to get above the curve here now. So my thought is that they are going to sign him, if not this season, because I think that they have some cap space that they could almost steal from in this season, that they would sign him to a long-range deal now, steal the rest of the cap space that they have for this year, make it a low cap hit next year, and then start to do it. going to wind up getting close to $50 million a year. He's going to break Kyler Murray's number.
Who, Jalen Hurts?
Yeah.
I can't see it. I can't see him twice
I don't see
Kyler
how they
Murray.
don't, because the truth of the matter is that the moment that they break the record of contracts, somebody's going to come behind them and break the record again.
No one else is going to offer Jalen Hurts a deal to rival, let's say, Patrick Mahomes. No other team is going to do that. Sometimes a player's greatest value is to his own team. And that's the case of Jalen Hurts. I mean, don't
I
tell
think
me
you are
any
very wrong. I think that you are very wrong. I think that you are going to see that teams would spend that money. Teams would spend
I
that
love
money.
Jalen Hurts. Listen, I'm a big Jalen Hurts booster, but take the Ravens, for example. They're not guaranteeing the money to Lamar Jackson. And as good as Jalen Hurts has been, at this point, I wouldn't say he's better than Lamar Jackson. You can't say that at this point. If anything, you have to put Lamar Jackson a little ahead of Jalen Hurts still at this point, because Jalen Hurts is still a work in progress. He's coming along wonderfully. He's doing great. You know who the MVP is on the Eagles? The guy who's the MVP. It's not Jalen Hurts, not at all. It's Howie Roseman, the GM. The way he set that team up, Pags, that's your real MVP. You ever hear the term "build it and he will come" from the baseball movie Field of Dreams? It says, set him up with position players and he will perform. You hear voice. That's what you hear from Jalen Hurts. They set him up with all the pieces around him, and he's been great. He's been great. And Jalen Hurts, to me, based on his college pedigree, yeah, this is no fluke. He's a very good quarterback. There are different levels. There are the few quarterbacks who are great, who have this great upside. Then there are the quarterbacks who are very good. Jalen Hurts now is about as good as he's ever going to be. And to me, that's good enough. That is good enough. You can win a Super Bowl with the current version of Jalen Hurts. Let him be like this for the rest of his career. And the Eagles have their franchise quarterback. But don't put him up there like he's going to be one of the 3 or 4 elite quarterbacks in the league. Jalen Hurts will be about 8th, 9th, 10th best quarterback in the league, maybe going forward. And that's great. I mean, you can win a Super Bowl with guys like that.
I don't know. I really have to disagree with you. And what is it going to take to make you change your mind? Is it going to take winning the Super Bowl MVP over Patrick Mahomes? Is it going to be a
now? Go down the list of elite quarterbacks. You're not going to put him ahead of Patrick Mahomes.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying, but my question becomes now. My question becomes: if he was to win the Super Bowl and get the Super Bowl MVP versus Patrick Mahomes, Eagles in Kansas City make it to the Super Bowl, and the Eagles win this game, and Jalen Hurts winds up being the MVP. Does that put him into that elite category?
Probably not. Listen, Pax, when the Giants ages ago beat the Broncos in the Super Bowl, Phil Simms performed magnificently. No quarterback in Super Bowl history ever performed better for that given game than Phil Simms did in beating the Broncos. But you wouldn't put Phil Simms as an equal to John Elway when you talk about great quarterbacks. I mean, and Phil Simms was an excellent quarterback, and he was a franchise quarterback. Any team would love to have a Phil Simms as their quarterback, but John Elway was one of the all-time greats. He was unique. Okay, so no, Jalen Hurts wouldn't be on the level with Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen. And I'm going to tell you this. Let's pretend the Eagles win the Super Bowl and Jalen Hurts is the Super Bowl MVP. Okay? You give my Jets a choice of either one, Patrick Mahomes or Jalen Hurts, to be their quarterback from now on. You don't think for one moment the Jets would consider Jalen Hurts, no matter how much he may have played better in the Super Bowl than a Patrick Mahomes. I mean, there's certain guys who are franchise quarterbacks. They're going to be there the next decade, and they have Hall of Fame written all over them. Justin Herbert's another one. Okay, I mean, this. Look, Jalen
So,
Hurts.
so right now, and I'm gonna stop you right there because, of course, Herbert is the first person that comes to my mind when we start to talk about these elite quarterbacks who has gotten the pass into the elite quarterback realm, who has not done anything yet. Justin Herbert has not made the playoffs, has not a playoff win, doesn't even have a playoff game belt. As of right now, he is slightly over 500. In fact, I don't even think he is over 500 as a quarterback. So, but everybody's got him as an elite quarterback. Does he deserve that elite status? Being a, I think of being a guy who has barely got over 500 as a quarterback of the Chargers.
Yes, he does. He was drafted number 6 overall out of the draft a couple of years ago. And he went to a bad Charger team, and he went to a team where the coach at the time, Anthony Lynn, was going to have him carry a clipboard for the year. But then Tyrod Taylor got that faulty shot from the doctor, couldn't play. At the last moment, Justin Herbert comes in, and they never looked back on the job. This year, the Chargers are what, 6-5? You say, yeah, that's not impressive. They're barely over 500. He's kept that team afloat. So they've had a ton of injuries. I know a lot of teams have had injuries, especially the Chargers. Their head coach, Brandon Staley, a lot of people are calling for him to be let go. But Justin Herbert's been the one stabilizing force there. I mean, listen, I'm not diminishing Jalen Hurts. I've always liked Jalen Hurts from the time he's been in college. I mean, he's a guy of the highest character. And I'll go a step further. I don't think any other quarterback could have done a better job with this Philadelphia Eagle team this year than he's done. Okay? But to give him the absolute max deal going forward, is kind of going to be a little risky, because if you don't surround him with top of the line players, I'm not sure that Jalen Hurts is a game changer. He's a great game manager, great game manager, okay? But is he a game changer in himself? Can he carry the offense the way, in a certain sense, the way Aaron Rodgers did in the past? Not the Aaron Rodgers of this year, because it's been a miserable year for Aaron Rodgers. Has age caught up with them? Is it just the receivers on in sync? I don't know what the reason is with Aaron Rodgers, but that's a whole other issue this year. Jalen Hurts is obviously a much better quarterback this year than Aaron Rodgers, so I don't want to get into debating that. But the Eagles are fortunate. They don't quite have to make a decision yet on Jalen Hurts. But I'm going to tell you, Pax, things could get ugly in Philadelphia quicker than even you anticipated. You're leading all these Philadelphia fanatics. You're practically starting your parade celebration now, Pax. Shame on you. Hold off a little bit, because I'm going to tell
What are
you
you
something.
talking about? What are you talking about?
Very quick. If you play the Washington Commanders in the first game of the playoffs, it could turn ugly, and Carson Wentz comes off the bench and throws a couple of TDs and upsets you guys. Things are ugly in Philadelphia.
Come on, you know that is such a pipe dream. That is such a pipe dream. We did our NFC East show, and I asked if there's any chance that Wentz comes back in for the Commanders, and Pork Rind said there's only chance he comes back is if Heineke gets hurt. That right now, as much as Heineke is not an elite quarterback, that really, when you think of quarterbacks, you probably put him in the third tier. And when I think of elite quarterbacks in the NFC right now, any elite quarterbacks, are there any elite quarterbacks in the NFC East? Or not in the NFC East, in the NFC in general. My answer right now is no.
Are there
Not
any
Brady,
altogether?
not
Jimmy Garoppolo is in the league. Jimmy Garoppolo's a excellent game manager. I think Jalen Hurts could be slightly better than Jim. He's slightly better. Well, this year he's been better than Jimmy G. But I think both of them at their best, you can make an argument it's pretty close. And maybe Jalen Hurts has a little tiny edge even there if he keeps developing, okay? Zach Prescott is pretty good. Don't sell Zach short, but he's not quite elite. He's got to take the next step, Zach Prescott, before we could consider him being elite. But he's pretty good, Zach Prescott. Dak Prescott. Again,
right.
confused
So,
myself.
so when you think about all of the quarterbacks that are out there right now, I'm talking now throughout the NFL. I mean, how many elite are you going to put out there? You're going to put maybe Patrick Mahomes. He's elite. Josh Allen, you could argue that he is elite. You could also argue that he is definitely in that high-end top tier, but not elite because of the mistakes that he's been making as of late.
Josh Allen's elite, Pags. Let him make mistakes. Who cares?
I get it, but I'm just talking about the argument. You could have the argument in either direction. So, and then once you get past that, who else falls into the mix of elite?
Well, listen, getting back just to the NFC, we said there are no elite quarterbacks. Throughout this year, because the Rams have been dreadful, Matthew Stafford's been hurt. I think Matthew Stafford, last year winning the Super Bowl, earned the right to be called elite because when he was with the Lions all those years, he was a very good quarterback on miserable teams, but a very good quarterback. So they finally put him on a good team with a position to win, and he led them to a Super Bowl victory. So I think
you could also argue the fact that it wasn't him that won that Super Bowl, that it was the defense that won that Super Bowl. That Joe Burrows was going blow for blow with him with a much worse offensive line.
Okay, Matthew Stafford is close to being elite. Let's put it that way.
Right. I would put him in that second tier of very, very good.
So you have certain quarterbacks who just need a little push to be in the short list of elite, and Matthew Stafford is very close to that when healthy, but not quite there.
So let me ask you this question. Because there are two teams that only have one loss in this league right now. Who are you choosing? Kirk Cousins or Jalen Hurts?
If I had to, now when you say choose, based on what?
You have two 10-1 teams. One of those teams is going to lead the Super Bowl. They both got elite receivers. They both got pretty good defenses. In fact, I would say short of the fact that they played each other and we won that game because it was at home. Because I bet you if it was at Minnesota, it may have had a different outcome. You put those two teams, they are the same team minus the quarterback. What quarterback do you want leading them into the Super Bowl?
Wow. Oh, boy. Whatever answer I give you today, I'm going to give you a different answer tomorrow. How's that? For a cop-out. Because it's so close. Kirk Cousins has all this experience that Jalen Hurts doesn't quite have yet. Jalen Hurts is still learning on the job and doing a great job, individually, but he's still kind of a little bit in the developmental stage. Still a little bit, which is fine because it takes a quarterback about a couple of years, and he didn't start playing till last year on a regular basis, and he didn't start the season really as their starter. I would give a little tiny edge this moment, maybe to Kirk Cousins because of the experience factor. But I think Jalen Hurts has the.
But you do know the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl is a primetime game.
No, you want to know something, Matt? Jalen Hurts has been my guy from college. The heck with Kirk Cousins. Let me retract that. I didn't have to wait one day. I had to wait like 4 seconds. I'm going to go with Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts could use his legs better than Kirk Cousins can. So Jalen Hurts, I think, can improvise better than Kirk Cousins, but Kirk Cousins is a little more solid from the pocket. But Kirk Cousins is also a little more mistake prone at times. And I think Jalen Hurts has a better rapport with his teammates, from what I can gather. Okay. He has a very good rapport. Jalen Hurts reads the locker room extremely well. If Jalen Hurts has a bad game, there doesn't seem to be rumblings about him. There's been a little talk about Kirk Cousins being a bit of an eye guy. Someone was surprised to see him dancing with his teammates. They say, "Oh, did you see Kirk actually did that?" Like it was beneath him before. I think that was Wentz's problem with the Eagles. He didn't have the locker room. It was like a job, business. He'd come in, and a quarterback's got to interact with everyone, not only his offensive players, but the guys on defense. And that concerned me a bit about Zach Wilson with the Jets. After Mike White had the great game against the Bears, filling in a quarterback, you saw a bunch of Jet players hugging Mike White, celebrating with him. They were like so happy for him. It was like he was their buddy. And you kind of wonder, did Zach Wilson, did he develop friendships with the guys? Did he go out to dinner with the guys, interact, joke with the guys, make the guys really want him to succeed? Because I feel even though every player is supposed to give 100%, if you like the quarterback a heck of a lot, you might put out that little teeny bit more for him. That's just my feeling.
Well, I think that it becomes more a matter of, in Zach Wilson's case, since we're talking about the Jets, I feel that he is more concerned about his image than he is about his field, and that started to come out in that press conference. And it's like, okay, well, now you got that, and you've upset your entire locker room. Now what? Now we're going to bring somebody else in, and here it is. You got this guy White who is, you know, comes in and is a different voice, and the different voice is welcome. That's all it is. Is that his voice was compared to other voice that they were hearing, and they get a little energized by that voice. I kind of liken it to the exact same thing that was going on with Wentz and Foles. That Wentz was a great voice for 2 years, winds up getting the ACL injury, and then you have Nick Foles, who was always in the background, coming in and winning the game and winning the Super Bowl. Now, obviously, it was we all we need type of situation that entire year. Go to the following year now. You have Nick Foles starting us off because Carson Wentz really isn't ready yet. Then Carson Wentz comes out there, and Carson Wentz is now got the weight of the world on his shoulders because he feels like he must perform to the nth degree and win the Super Bowl. And that's what he was trying to do. He was trying to win the Super Bowl with every pass that he threw. The problem was is that the team just won the Super Bowl and they weren't in that mentality level. So in game 3 of the season, in game 4 and game 5 of the regular season, you can't win the Super Bowl. But that's what he was trying to do. That is very similar, little different scenario, but very similar to what's going on with Zach Wilson and now White. Is that Zach Wilson was the starter last year, comes in this year, gets hurt, has to fight to get back in on the field. He gets back on the field. He may not be operating at 100%, but he's giving it everything he's got. And the words come out wrong. Then you start talking, and somebody hasn't shut you up because that's what happened there. He started talking too much. He needed to just be quiet. He needed to take the responsibility. He didn't take the responsibility. He started talking. And truth of the
No, it
matter is
wasn't.
once you
It wasn't. Things get blown up, and I can understand why. But just quickly with Wentz, Wentz did play a big role in the Eagles winning the Super Bowl with what he did during the regular season. And people shouldn't forget Wentz's contribution. But unfortunately, they just noticed Wentz wasn't there for the end of the season in the playoffs. But he did put the Eagles in a good position the year that they won the Super Bowl. He performed at a very high level when he was the quarterback before he got hurt. As far as Zach Wilson went, had Zach Wilson just said when they felt, did you let the defense down? Had he said, you're darn right, I let the defense down, I let the offense down, I let the coaching staff down, I let our fans down, I let myself down, I let everyone down. I'm embarrassed by the way I did. I just want to apologize to everyone the way I did. I'm going to make it up next week. I'm going to practice harder than I ever have before for next week's game. And I'm going to, I'm going to perform at the level, that I should. And this is unacceptable the way I've played and let my team down. He would have been the quarterback the next week. I think they wouldn't have yanked him. They would have been upset with the way he played, but they would have said, okay, let's see what he does. Bill Parcells always used to say, when a young quarterback messes up, he wants to see the way he could come back the next week. Show that attitude. But instead, he said, Zach Wilson, no, I'm not to blame. Had he tried to modify it by saying, look, we win as a team, we lose as a team. If he said that in the beginning, he said, look, I was terrible. Let's be honest about it. I was awful. I'm disgusted with myself. This is unacceptable. This is going to be corrected by next week. I'm going to get this corrected very quickly because this is unacceptable. I can't let these guys down, even though we win and lose as a team. But instead, he just made a bland remark. No, I don't feel I let anyone down. And he played so poorly. He didn't read the room that his team was disgusted with him. Look what's going on at Denver right now. Russell Wilson, whether or not you believe he should be a Hall of Famer, and you've talked about it, Pags, you've expressed some doubts. He is going to get in. He is going to get voted in, whether you think he should or not, based on his work at Seattle. He might lose a few votes the way things are going at Denver, but I think he's put enough money in the bank, basically, to get the votes to get him in based on his years in Seattle. But look at the way the team has turned on Russell Wilson. These are guys who haven't accomplished nearly the amount Russell Wilson has in the NFL, yet they're yapping at the quarterback. One of his offensive linemen got in his face. They're treating Russell Wilson like he's some free agent rookie who was given the job or whatever. They don't have much patience with him. They're exasperated. I mean, it's like the defense, the offensive line, everyone else, you can't expect them to do their job week in and week out and not get results because they feel you're not doing your job. And maybe the feeling is to Russell Wilson, you're too good for this. What the heck is going on, man? You've accomplished things in the past. You could do it again, but you're not doing it, and we're fed up with it. What the heck is going on at Denver? But the problem at Denver is they're locked into a long-term deal. They can't just cut them, eat the money, because what they've lost in draft choices, the cap hit they're going to take, they're stuck with Russell Wilson at least through next year. They've got to try it. They just can't move away. Can they salvage things in Denver? What would you do if you're the Broncos? And I don't want to hear, just cut him, get rid of the bum. Okay, or one of those.
You can't now. You can't. And truth be told is that you have to. So what's going on in Denver is a lot bigger than just Russell Wilson. I think Russell Wilson is the calling card that everybody sees there because of how big a deal he was and that signing was there. Truth be told is that Russell Wilson is just is just another card in that deck. They sold the team And all of a sudden, the culture that was there as the Broncos has gone into upheaval. That everything that they remember of this franchise has now changed overnight. And in the process of that, that has created a ripple effect throughout the entire franchise. Now, of course, Russell Wilson spent that money. And do I think Russell Wilson will be as bad of a quarterback next year as he is this year? No, I don't think he will be. I think he will get better. But that's because he absolutely stinks right now. You have no choice but to get better. And he's a better quarterback. He cares too much about his craft to just sit back and do nothing. So, and that's what some people would do. Some people would quit. They would be like, I just don't. That's that, like Aaron Rodgers. That's what Aaron Rodgers is doing. Aaron Rodgers has quit. He's quit on his team. He's saying he's going to play. He's doing everything he wants to do, but he's quit on his team. And I feel that that's the same way with Russell Wilson right now, except Russell Wilson will not quit. He will want to be better and act better and be better next year. The problem is that he's got to take an off season to do that and do it right now. And everything, all the cards are laid out on the table. They've been dealt their hand this year, and their hand sucks. They have to fold, and that's the problem.
Pat, shame on you for calling Aaron Rodgers a quitter. This is the man who's a back-to-back MVP these last 2 seasons, not this year, back-to-back MVP. I think the problem with Aaron Rodgers in part this year was in the past, he's been so great. He's been the type of player, the rare type of player. He can get out of bed in the middle of the night and quickly suit up in 10 minutes and hit wide open receivers. It's been so automatic from his whole life. And all of a sudden, he turned the switch on, but the light didn't come on this year. I think in the offseason, you're going to see a different Aaron Rodgers come focus the training camp next year, different attitude. He's going to show up early. It's not going to be a lackadaisical Aaron Rodgers. I can understand him being a little lackadaisical because when you win the MVP award 2 years in a row, you buy into how great you are. You kind of have that feeling. It's been working for me
yourself, as I say.
All along. Yeah, he became a little full of himself, but now Aaron Rodgers has been humbled, and it's kind of became too late in the year to do anything. I mean, they did get a little better. He got as the year went along, but this year's been a mess. I think the Packer problem is what to do with Jordan Love the rest of the season because they definitely want him to have a couple of starts. I mean, just to get the work in. But even Aaron Rodgers said something that was interesting. As long as they have a chance, a mathematical chance to make the playoffs, he should be starting. But he can understand if they're out of contention, they've got to call Aaron Rodgers out on this, the Pack organization. If they're out of, and they're on the verge of being out of it altogether. I mean, just they're one game away from being history, and the chances of them making the playoffs extremely slim at this point. But if it's obvious with 3 games to go, 4 games to go, season's over. I'm not saying start Jordan Love that many games, but he really should get a couple of games in. But now if he plays really well, okay, Jordan Love, do you have a quarterback controversy in Green Bay? I hope you don't, because Aaron Rodgers has got to be the guy next year.
Do you think anybody would take Aaron Rodgers in that contract?
Yes.
Do you think that somebody would take the last 2 years of that contract, which is $100 million for 2 years, and a team take him?
Oh, yeah. I'll give you one offhand. It has to be a team that has a genuine shot at winning the Super Bowl. And I'll give you one team that might surprise you. Jimmy G's contract is up at the end of this year with the Niners. If they don't go to the Super Bowl, okay, don't win the Super Bowl, and they can slot in Rodgers instead of Jimmy G, they're going to do that. I think they're going to do that. There are a couple of other teams too, teams that are very close, are going to do that. They're not going to want to mess up a situation with a franchise quarterback going forward. For example, the Eagles, they're not going to want to mess up any chemistry with Jalen Hurts going forward, and especially the way the Eagles have been playing. But let's say the Eagles got eliminated in the first round of the playoffs, and they could have Aaron Rodgers next year. They still wouldn't do it. But it's intriguing to think of some of the teams that could really maybe want an Aaron Rodgers who could think that they're being somewhat close. Listen, some of the weaker teams would take a chance on Aaron Rodgers. You don't think the Detroit Lions would do it, for example, instead of Jared Goff? If the Lions improving like next year, like just take, a shot at it. Not that Aaron Rodgers would want to go there. You don't think the Jets would? I mean,
No,
I don't want to
I
talk.
and I think that there's one team that I believe would absolutely do it over top of every other team, and would probably think about it in the off season, and that's the Las Vegas Raiders. I think that they would try to put the two of them together again. And I think that would probably be the best move for Aaron Rodgers too.
Right, having Devontae Adams. Listen, another team in their division, if they could somehow get Aaron Rodgers instead of Russell Wilson, they'd be doing cartwheels to Broncos.
That won't happen. That won't happen at all. They have no ability to move that whatsoever.
The Indianapolis Colts would love for Aaron Rodgers to quarterback that team instead.
And I'll tell you the reason why they won't is because they played this game now 3 years in a row. So I don't think that they would go after Aaron Rodgers, just because, again, you're doing the same dance that you've done last 3 years in a row. You can't do it that way.
Aaron Rodgers has to agree that he's ready to go elsewhere. He has to tell the Packers, and now the Packers, okay, if he said that to the Packers would now have to determine, number one, do we want to move on from Aaron Rodgers? And my feeling is yes, based on this year, that they would accommodate him. Last year, they wouldn't have accommodated him before this season because he was a back-to-back MVP, and they felt, we probably can't win without Aaron, but they didn't win with him this year. So I think they would move on. And I think there's a certain Aaron Rodgers fatigue within the Packer organization. And one end, the city of Green Bay and the organization, they revere what he's done. They appreciate it, but they're sick of the drama. They're sick of the drama. And I can't believe for 1 second, despite the smiley faces everyone in the organization puts on, that they're not a little sick of Aaron and all the histrionics that have gone on with him. And they would want to play Jordan Love a couple of games, and they would want Jordan Love to really look good. And their GM who drafted him, he's going to want Jordan Love to succeed. But once again, it's still in Aaron Rodgers' hands through next year. He's got the contract. He doesn't want to move on. They're not going to push him. The Packer organization is very careful not to say anything that could antagonize Aaron Rodgers. They know they better be on their best behavior because you ever hear like Big Daddy's watching you, Big Aaron is watching them to hear if he hears any voices of dissension. So even this week, Aaron Rodgers' ribs are hurting, this and that. They didn't know whether he could play. If the coach, LaFleur easily could have said, no, I want him to rest an extra week. He's not playing. I'm playing Jordan. Aaron will be in next week. But he doesn't want to. He's like, Aaron Rodgers is like coaching that team still to an extent. He's still the most powerful voice in the organization until they're sure he can't do it anymore. And that would be next year. If next year this type of play continues, then they're going to be ready to clamp down on Aaron at that point.
I would agree. I think the only other team that I think could possibly make that type of move that would be able to pull Aaron Rodgers out of Green Bay could be the Saints. That's the two teams, as I say, Las Vegas and New Orleans, I think, are the two teams. New Orleans doesn't have a really good
win.
Well,
Raiders intriguing, but
yeah,
Saints.
The Raiders have, I think, a better team, and I mean, I guess you could talk about the coach. Is the coach really the issue? Is he going to make it? Would you have kept him? Would you keep him if you didn't have so many years left on his contract? I think that the problem is ownership over there in Las Vegas. Yeah, because I think that the young Davis, is not his father, and he thinks he is his father, and the problem is that he's just not as good at anything
Well,
that his father was.
let me tell you, Pax, players talk to one another. Josh McDaniels was Tom Brady's offensive coordinator for a lot of years. And there's a brotherhood between elite quarterbacks. I'm sure if Aaron Rodgers meets up with Tom Brady, talks to him in private, look, what's the lowdown on Josh McDaniel? And to get a sense of what Brady says, if Brady talks glowingly, says, Aaron, you're going to want to be coached by this guy. Believe me, this guy helped me with this and that. He's such a great coordinator. You're going to love him, Aaron. That plays a role, in him thinking, wow, I might want to hook up with Josh McDaniel after all that Tom said about him. Speaking of Tom Brady, we talked about Aaron Rodgers maybe being replaced at some point by Jordan Love. There's no talk about this with Tom Brady because for whatever reason, the Buccaneers don't have a backup of the stature of Jordan Love waiting in the wings. So who do you replace Tom Brady with? So there's no talk. And also the Bucs, as bad as they've been, they're clinging on to first place. Unlike the Packers, if the season ended today, the Bucs get up, they're in the playoffs.
Yeah, and obviously they'd be one and done because I think any team from the NFC East would beat them, that's who they play. I think right now they would be playing the Cowboys, and there's no way that the Cowboys would lose that game, even though the Cowboys are not very good offs. They've only won 3 games in the last 25 years in the playoffs. I think that any team is going to beat Tampa Bay. That being said, teams that make it to the playoffs with losing records win their first playoff game. It's interesting how that kind of works. The only team that did not was Washington 2 years ago against Tampa, as they made
They
it
gave
to
him a
the
good game.
yeah,
They
they
gave him
almost they
a game.
almost did. But like I said, you're right. They don't have anybody that could back up Brady right now, and it shows. That team got old, and so did the Rams. The Rams went from Super Bowl winners to old, and the Buccaneers. It took 2 years. They went from Super Bowl winners to playoff, Super Bowl contenders to old, and that is part of the reason why the NFL in total stinks this year. I think the NFL has got a terrible product out on the field in
No,
general.
there's parity. There's parity in the NFL. I mean, it doesn't mean because you don't have the super teams, it doesn't mean the product, the quality's gone down at all. We were talking about Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, and it made me think of Peyton Manning and some of the other elite quarterbacks. It seems that they're not anxious to have great backups behind them because they don't want someone peeking over their shoulder. I mean, Brady had Jimmy Garoppolo peeking over his shoulder, and reportedly he wasn't thrilled about it because there were some whispers about Garoppolo maybe replacing Brady in New England. Peyton Manning never had a top of the line backup behind him. It's as if he didn't want to. I mean, and Aaron Rodgers has Jordan Love. If he didn't have Jordan Love behind him, there wouldn't be any of this talk. Should Aaron be playing next week? And you just look around the league, and the backup quarterback should be a vital position, Pax. To me, it's a very important position because your starting quarterback is one play away from having to conceivably be out for the season, and your backup has to be able to come in and carry the team. It's so important. And some teams just aren't ready in the backup position.
I agree. I agree, and we've seen it. We've seen it. The Eagles specifically. Having a good backup is worth a lot.
Minshew.
You know what I mean? Well, not even with the Eagles specifically now. I'm talking even back, 5 years ago, where we won the Super Bowl. Having a great backup
Wait,
was
wait, wait, wait.
important.
Oh, yeah, yeah. No, that was good with Foles, but I wasn't impressed when the Eagles tanked that game to the Redskins to deprive
Well,
the
that wasn't a
Giants
good
from going to
backup,
the
and it
playoffs.
doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Yeah, see,
whoever was that guy,
don't cry, don't
Sutherfield
cry
or
for the Giants. I
come on,
finally
that
got
guy
rid of
was
all my
inept.
tissues.
The guy was inept. He
Yeah,
was
but that was fine. And
terrible.
you see, he's not in the NFL anymore,
The
so it
Eagle
doesn't matter.
players were exasperated on the sidelines. They were looking towards Doug Peterson like, we want to win this game. Why aren't you allowing us to win this game? I mean, they didn't deliberately throw the game, obviously, but if when you're putting your players in an uncomfortable position, it's not good. Listen, even the Indianapolis Colts, when they were 14-0 and Jim Caldwell was their coach, rather than go for an unbeaten season, they yanked Peyton Manning, and Peyton Manning at one point is going to Jim Caldwell on the sideline saying, you can put me in. I'm ready to go in again. You took me out. I want to play. And this brilliant mind says, no, no, by losing a game, we're going to be better prepared for the playoffs. To me, once you go on a big unbeaten run, and the Eagles don't quite have that because they were upset the one game that they lost to Washington. But if the Eagles had won that game, the talk now with Philadelphia would be a little less about winning the Super Bowl, even though they would sign up for that in the snap of the finger. But we would be talking about, did the Eagles actually have a chance to run the table? They'd be a long way from that, but there would be some talk about it. But the problem is the fatigue. It takes so much out of you. By the time you get to the playoffs, you're mentally drained with having to win every week and you're exhausted. And that could actually hurt you in the playoffs, I agree. But just throwing a game basically and losing it to reset, that bothers me because you're not going for the ultimate greatness. That bothers me. If you already have one loss and you play your backups for second loss because you're resting for the playoffs because you want to get everything in place, I'm good with that. But I'm not good for like not going all out for an unbeaten season if you're close to it.
I kind of understand that. You know what I mean? It's you play to win the game, and if you have a possibility of creating history, you gotta kind of go after history. You know what I mean? So that's what I kind of feel about that. Uh, Again, not only do you need a great season, you need a little bit of luck. You need a little bit of luck involved with that as well. You can't just you. It's not some bounces have to go your way to be undefeated. It's don't you wind up losing those games, and it doesn't matter when those bounces happen. Obviously, with the Patriots, the bounce really that helmet catch when he caught that ball on his helmet, that was a bad bounce for the Patriots. That could have happened in 1,000 different ways, but he wound up catching the ball on his helmet. That play itself is what was the demise of the Patriots. That one bad
You know,
bounce that they took.
people forget that during that drive, there was a pass of Manning's that was nearly intercepted by Samuel. Had that ball been intercepted, that would have been the game right over there. But listen, I mean, the helmet catch, I don't want, it's overrated as a catch in itself, but it's so
No, but all it
unique.
was luck. All it was
No,
luck
no, he
going
held it to his
against.
helmet, and the ball. If I'm the Patriots, I'm thinking to myself, someone should have been someone should have put a big hit on Tyree, okay, and jawed the ball loose. That would have been the thing because how he's holding it's a little unsteady, but things happen in like such quick time.
Yep. Yep. So, but going back to something that you had just mentioned a minute ago, we'll finish this out to get to the top of the hour here. Uh, Peyton Manning. You mentioned Peyton Manning, and I asked yesterday to the guys of the NFC East show if they thought that Saturday would remain the coach of the Colts. That at the end of the season would Saturday remain the coach, and uh, The answer was no. They didn't think that he would remain the coach. But something was brought up to me that I didn't really think about before. Is Saturday there as the coach to try to entice Peyton Manning to become the GM of the Colts? And if you are Peyton Manning, would you want to become the GM of an NFL franchise?
Peyton Manning is one of the unique personalities in sports in that he's iconic. The vast majority of players, and I'm including Hall of Famers in this, the vast majority of Hall of Famers, when they retire, they just become other guys. Very few athletes are so big and iconic, they don't have to do anything to get people to surround them at airports and look at them like they're stars. Manning is one of the guys who could do that. Tom Brady's one of the guys. They're, in a sense, as big as the game in a certain way. Okay? Peyton Manning has so many things he can do with his life, and he wants some family time. He doesn't want to be tied up at the office all the time. That's why he hasn't taken an exact job that would take him away for so long. Because once you take a high-profile job, and you're Peyton Manning, if you don't succeed in it, you're tarnished for good, for the most part. And I'll give you a case in point. Even though Urban Meyer's looked at as being a bit of a clown, right? But before he took the Jacksonville job, Urban Meyer was hot property as a coach. You figure he could get any job anywhere. This is the great Urban Meyer. He's a legend. He's tarnished. Phil Jackson, look at what a great coach he was with the Bulls and the Lakers. He was iconic. 11 championships as a coach and 2 as a Knick player. Now he becomes a Knick executive, falls flat on his face. Could Phil Jackson, if he were young enough and wanted to, could he have gotten a head coaching job anywhere? Chances are somewhere, but he was no longer in demand. So he's being very careful, Peyton Manning. He could have that GM job, I'm sure, with the Colts, the day-to-day operations. But does he really want to do it? He does his ESPN show, for the Monday night games, him and Eli. He has his ESPN show, Peyton's Places, some other stuff. Yeah, Peyton Manning would probably more apt to want to be part of an ownership group. Call shots that way as a boss, not be behind the desk every day answering to an owner. I mean, I can't say he'd want, and he'd have to move back to Indianapolis. Not that that's so bad, but you have to consider family considerations. People talk about Jeter. Oh, should the Yankees bring him back to work for them? They'd have to let Jeter do it remotely from Florida. He doesn't want to move his family to New York. I mean, they're comfortable in Florida. Jeter's wife even said, well, there's certain ownership jobs, the only thing we would do is this or that. And, she was referring basically to places like Kansas City, Milwaukee. They're not going to move there and live there full time so Derek could do the job there.
Well, I hear you. But, again, a lot of jobs can happen remotely. I don't know about being GM, but it just made it was interesting to me that Irsay, first off, hired Saturday. And then secondly, what was his motivation for hiring Saturday? And was it to possibly try to get Peyton Manning over back into the Colts family as
No,
a GM?
Max, no. If he could have done it an easier way if that was Irsay's motivation. You could say, Peyton, I want you to be the GM of the team. You have 100% say over who the coach is, the personnel. You're in charge of hiring the coach. I won't even sit in on the interview with the coach if you don't want me to. You tell me who you want as the coach. We'll work out the contract to get the coach to come over. You're 100% in charge. No, Peyton Manning, I don't want to say he's been a bit like John Elway because people perceive Elway as an executive being a bit of a failure. And Elway wasn't a failure. As an executive, he took the Broncos to 2 Super Bowls and they won 1. He's the guy who got Peyton Manning to come over to Denver. So to me, Elway's actually been a success on balance. But Peyton Manning's history of personnel. He's the guy who recommended Adam Gase to the Jets as the head coach. He sang the virtues of how great Adam Gase was. And look at the way that worked out. It worked out awfully. So there's your answer.
Yeah. Well, and there we go. At least, so boy, we're at the top of the hour. Let's take a quick few-minute break here to do some commercials and a station identification, and we'll be back just after these commercial messages. And where are we at? Sorry, I'm a little bit slow on the draw here. Let's go.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you. Your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov, a public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Mr. Green? Mr. Green,
Yeah.
you need any help? I just want you to know, I think you're the best ever.
Yeah, sure.
Want my Coke? It's okay, you can have it.
No.
Really, you can have it.
Okay.
Coke and a smile makes me feel good, makes me feel nice.
Be around.
That's the way it should be. I like to see
Hey, kid.
the whole world smiling with me. Coca-Cola as life. Have a Coke and
Thanks, Mean Joe.
smile.
When you drive to Wendy's and order a single, you get more beef than the Whopper or the Big Mac. At Wendy's, you never have to ask, where's the beef?
Supporting the needs of our veterans. That's the goal of all of us at Team AmVets. Like Mitch, Carlos, and Kevin from our Welcome Home team that brings furniture to our vets.
We are Team AmVets.
Or Linda from our thrift stores who brings you great bargains every day.
I am Team AmVets.
And John, who picks up your thrift store donations that support California veterans programs.
I am Team AmVets.
Visit our website or a Team AmVets thrift store to donate or shop today.
Join the team!
My baloney has a first name. It's O-S-C-A-R. My baloney has a second name. It's M-A-Y-E-R. Oh, I love to eat it every day. And if you ask me why, I'll say, 'cause Oscar Mayer has a way with B-O-L-O-G-N-A.
Oscar Mayer, the first name in Bologna.
How's that?
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready. I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, I'm from Brooklyn. Hey, get any...
And we are back to the Mac and Jack Show. I'm Jamie Pags filling in for Mac along with Hall of Fame boxing writer Jack Hirsch.
I got a question I want to ask you, Pags, very quickly.
Let's
the
go.
Christmas Day game, the Miami Dolphins are hosting the Green Bay Packers. I'm going to that game. I got tickets for myself. I bought them my son-in-law. I bought them before the season. The highest price tickets on the Dolphins schedule, because tickets are sold in a way in this era unlike it was in the past. In the past, when I was younger, it would be the same for each game, but now they price them according to the game, what has more appeal. So the Packers were the highest price game, and I would be joking. With my luck, I'll be seeing Jordan Love playing for the Packers on Christmas Day. The way things stand right now, what percent would you say that Aaron Rodgers is going to be starting for the Packers? And I want to see Aaron Rodgers play. What percent is it going to be Jordan Love? What percent Aaron Rodgers on Christmas Day? You have to think we're a little bit off. We're like, what, 3.5 weeks away?
I'd say about 30%.
30%. 70% chance Aaron Rodgers. I mean, Jordan Love.
No, 70%, Jordan Love.
Aaron Rodgers. Let's call it 60% Jordan Love and 10% whoever else they might have on the roster.
Yeah,
Not good. Now, I didn't pay all that money for that. I paid my money to see Aaron Rodgers. So
yeah, but you can't help those.
I don't want to see Tua start lighting it up and being the big sensation in the NFL by the end of the month, because that's not good for the Jets.
Right. So, I mean, hey, listen, the fact that you're going to be in Miami for Christmas should be, good enough.
Well, I want the Packers to win. It helps the Jets within the division, so I've got a rooting interest there.
Good luck with that. Let's see how that works out for you. Because as of right now, the Dolphins are the darlings of the AFC. They're not the class of the AFC. I'll still give that to Kansas City, and you can still even put Buffalo above them there. But I think that right now, the Dolphins are the darlings of the AFC. That they are the ones that they are trying to promote a little bit. And it's about time. You know what I mean? And they pretty good football over there in Miami. So especially after such a weirdo season with Flores, to come back and to be in first place in the AFC East is something that's pretty worthwhile.
Pags, we've talked football because I'm trying. You're a bit depressed. You're a bit down with what's going on in Philly sports. So I'm trying.
I'm not depressed, but I was going to bring that up right now. I was going to start it off with basketball as we got off of the top. Come from the top of the hour. Last night, the Sixers got crushed by Cleveland. Now, Cleveland is a good team this year. Cleveland's been playing pretty well. They right now have the 3rd seed in the East, and the Sixers are in the 4th seed. Now, the Sixers have been playing a lot of games in a lot of days. I think that yesterday was their 6th game in 9 days. So that's a lot of basketball to be played. They got crushed by Cleveland. Who I think the final score wound up being 28 points or maybe even 30 points.
I picked Cleveland to go to the finals at the beginning of the season. Keep that in mind.
Okay, that's fine. And the press conference game afterwards, Doc Rivers said that this was a scheduled loss. And, they were talking about it on Sports Talk Radio last night as I was listening for a few minutes. And I'm like, I don't like that thought process just in general. I understand that in an 82-game season that you're going to have losses that are figured into the equation. And when you have a lot of games and there's a lot of situations occurring where it's just you're not going to have all your legs underneath of you, that you're going to have blowout losses like they did. And it's just the fact that it came against the team that you are competing against right now for 3rd place albeit 20 games into the season. We're only 25% into the season right now. It's still to hear a scheduled loss against somebody who is above you in the seedings. How do you feel about just that statement?
I mean, he said it the wrong way. That's the problem. You can't start calling something like a scheduled loss. You know, I mean, let's be honest. Teams reset. Okay, they're tired. They just want to regroup, I use the term before, playing with house money. You know, if they win a game, fine. If they don't, at this point in the season, wins and losses in itself on a given game aren't that important in this point of the season. It seems like the whole NBA, it's about gearing for position for the playoffs, getting the top 6, not having to be in the play-in. Then if you can't get in an automatic playoff position, then you're looking at the play-in position. But even teams now who are sitting on the outside of the play-in position, they scan the standings and say, only 4 games out of, 3rd place overall, for example. So they're not really panicking. They kind of want to stay healthy. And with the Sixers, I think a bigger problem is not being concerned about what Doc Rivers said. I think they have to look not just towards this year, but towards the future. And what's going to happen with James Harden? This was supposed to be the year that Harden was going to prove that he was still the James Harden of old. He'd been hurt. He was going to get back to what he was when he first came to the Nets after leaving Houston. And he got off to a promising start for a few games. And then he kind of regressed a little, but then he got hurt. But if a player can't stay healthy and start, especially an older player who becomes injury prone, how do you invest in them going forward? Chances are they wind up losing James Harden, or why would they want to re-sign him for big money? I mean, it just wouldn't make sense. And is Philadelphia truly a destination place for free agents of other players who want to come to? I think the answer is more yes than no, because they have Joel Embiid. Whenever you have Joel Embiid, if you're a star on another team, you think you have a chance to win the NBA championship because of Joel Embiid. But like I've said to you on past shows, Pax, I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. And you know what that is? Joel Embiid, for the first time in his career, shows true discontent with the Sixer organization. As soon as he does that, that's the beginning of the end of his stay in Philadelphia, that he's going to want to go out. And then the Sixers, for the first time, are going to look to see what type of major package can we get for Embiid. And when that happens, you're talking about a rebuild of the likes of what the Utah Jazz are going through right now. You can still hover around 500, but the NBA championship is out of the equation.
I would agree with that. I think that is if you have Joel Embiid deciding that he wants to go somewhere, then you are going to be able to get a tremendous package for him. You'll wind up stealing a bunch of different first-round picks, probably from a team like you could probably get. I mean, like I said, it's 5 first-round picks are the going rate now for the Monsters, which is ridiculous to me. But that being said, you would probably get something like that for somebody like Embiid. That all being said, I think we're still a couple of years away from that.
I wouldn't say a couple of years. It could happen this year, but if it did happen hypothetically, and you don't want it to happen, okay, flat out, you're hoping it doesn't happen. But if it did happen, and Embiid pushed the issue, wanting to be traded, and it became apparent they better move on from Embiid because the discontent is too great. If you had a choice of a bunch of draft picks, I don't know what you say, 5 first rounders is going rate. I'm not sure, but I know what you're saying. The deal for Rudy Gobert was ridiculous, and it set the market at a certain place. Or you could trade Embiid for another type star player like in Anthony Davis. Okay, whenever you have a star like Embiid, you can never make a deal where you're going to come out better for it. Okay, you're not going to improve on Embiid per se, unless things just happen to work out that way. You want to limit damage control, get something that's at least nearly as good, to replace Embiid. But so do you go for the draft picks? Do you go for an Anthony Davis? If the Celtics are offering you a Jason Tatum or something, do you go star for star if you can get it? Obviously, the Bucks are not going to give you Giannis. I would do that at the snap of a finger if I could get a Giannis. But what's the best route to go? To rebuild, completely with nice draft picks, getting good guys out of college, or an established star who another team would be ready to move on from?
I think that you would have to go. Me personally, I don't know that I'd want to bring on like an Anthony Davis or even a Giannis. Yeah, the problem. So the reason why I wouldn't do Giannis is because Giannis has got a rapport with all of those guys on the Bucks, and that is his championship team. When you move him and switch positions to come here, now he's got to do all the things that he's done for years with the Bucks to get to the point of where he's at now. He's a great player, but is he going to be able to have the same type of rapport as he's going to have with all of his Bucks
you're
players?
mad. You're just bitter, Pax, because
I'm not bitter. It's not a bitter thing. That's a realistic thing. I'm talking about the chemistry of what's going to happen with your team. And the reason why I don't like when you trade big name players like that, when you just figure that they're just going to slot right in and everything go great, it doesn't ever work that way. It never works that way. So in my case, I would take a step back. I would get a level 2 guy, a good players and those draft picks and have them grow into it rather than try to say, okay, we're going to trade Embiid and we're going to win a championship. Because I don't think that happens. I don't think that you trade Embiid and go to win a championship. I think you have to grow into that. And I think that when you have a star player, like if you were to trade 1-for-1 Embiid for Giannis, I don't think that either team would succeed with that trade.
Well, Bucks would never do it. Sixers might do it even now, but the Bucks definitely wouldn't do it at this point. I mean, they wouldn't trade Giannis
because of the chemistry. Because of the chemistry, you'd have to work out that whole chemistry thing, and that is a much bigger deal, specifically in basketball, in comparison to anything else.
You want to know how the Sixers could make if the Sixers could somehow pry Jimmy Butler away from Miami, even if they traded Maxey, Harris, and maybe 3 number 1s. I'm just throwing out an idea. It's nothing more than an idea. But that's the one player who Embiid loved to play with. If he had Jimmy Butler back, he would be happy. There wouldn't be discontent, They would try to make it work there. But so you're right on the point you said about, chemistry. It means so much. Certain stars, they have to see the daylight at the end of the tunnel. And you get the feeling with Embiid, he's tired not having the ring, not coming close. You're in the hope business. If you think you have a good chance of getting it, you stick with your team. But the Sixers, the last couple of years, they were considered to be an elite team in the East, if not the favorites, at least an elite team with an excellent chance of going to the finals. And now they're just one of several teams. I mean, other teams have joined them in the lead pack. So just by virtue of that, their chances have diminished. And the one hope they had, if James Harden had a rejuvenation this year, maybe Harden comes back late in the year and starts tearing it up. You never know. I mean, he's been on the bench. He seemed to have at least bought in while he's been inactive. At least it seems that way. So maybe Harden comes back with a vengeance. They start winning, and but despite the Celtics' great start, they can be had. I mean, a number of teams that could come out of the East.
I agree. And not only that, I would also think that there's a piece of me, and I don't ever talk about people's injuries and stuff like that, but there's a piece of me that believes that Harden is on the bench right now waiting for like the last 15 games of the season to come so that he would be fresh for the playoffs. That's what I believe. I believe that he's going to take him 7 to 10 games to get his feet back under him. So he'd be playing limited minutes in those. And then for the last of the season, going into the whole playoffs, he is going to be as fresh as you're going to be able to have a 33-year-old Harden.
Could I tell you something with Harden? Harden is primarily, and I can't say this for sure, I can't read his mind, but it would be my feeling that Harden is mostly focused on the mega contract that he wants to get more than he is winning the NBA title. Now, they go hand in hand. If he does come back with 15 games and he's great throughout the playoffs, they go to the finals, win, yeah, he's going to get the deal. But I can't believe Harden's holding out, because the more games he misses, he's devaluing himself. Teams are going to look at the amount that he was out this year.
I hear you, but I think that, I mean, let's face it, he ain't about to go broke anytime real soon.
No, but it's the Sixers could offer him the best deal. The question is, are they going to want to re-sign him? I mean, that's the question. And I'm going to tell you too, and if he's holding out, when he could play, just sit.
I wouldn't be surprised. Listen, I wouldn't be surprised that this isn't just, that Harden's holding out. I think that is more of a combined effort. Like I said, I don't know. I don't have that type of knowledge about the franchise in general. But my thought is that Harden and, everybody it's involved in this whole mix knows exactly what's going on. And hey, listen, you're injured. We're going to make sure you are definitely 110% ready to play. No sense of bringing you back anything less. We want you at 110%. So, and if it takes all season for you to get to 110%, to like 12 games left, 15 games left in the season, get your legs underneath you, and then get ready to go play in the playoffs. It wouldn't surprise me in the slightest bit for his season to go that way, because he is old. I mean, listen, the year that Toronto won the championship, when Kawhi Leonard had that quadruple bounce against the Sixers, Kawhi Leonard was out most of the season. He came back to play the last little bit and literally won the NBA championship almost single-handedly. I mean, they did have a couple extra players on Toronto, but he single-handedly won the championship. And now he was out most of that season. They are taking a page from that book. And let me tell you, Kawhi Leonard was able to play. He was able to play. He just didn't play because they were more concerned about the playoff run, and he did not want to get hurt in the regular season. But he showed his worth in the playoffs, because right after that championship, he was out of Toronto.
Yeah, you kind of wonder. Kawhi Leonard, to this day, they love him in Toronto just on the 1 year he was there. He's always going to be a Raptor favorite. The fans always going to love the guy based on the 1 year they won a championship. That's a city that values championships. And you kind of wonder, had he stayed with the Raptors, even if they didn't win anymore, he would have been a big fan favorite. He wouldn't have been diminished. They wouldn't have turned on him. So he goes to LA because I guess he wants to be by his hometown to play for the Clippers. He's been hurt a lot. Has he been hurt to the point where he's had to miss as many games as he's had? I mean, I'm not in the trainer's room. I'd have to assume, yeah, he's genuinely hurt. But I know there were problems with Coach Pop at San Antonio why he was out of there. So that's a red flag. He was entitled to leave Toronto if he wanted to, as a free agent. But it's you just kind of wonder why players make a move. Most players like to stay with storied franchises. Some just like the city, and Kawhi Leonard to go to the Clippers. He wasn't going to a storied franchise. He liked the city of LA to live there. But you even look at the NFL, like players, for the most part, I'd assume Green Bay wouldn't be their first preference. But before this season, Green Bay was a great destination point, like Buffalo is now. Let's be honest, the majority of players would not want to live in Buffalo. Yet a lot of them, if they heard they were going to be traded there, their first thought isn't going to be, oh, I got to live in Buffalo. It's going to be, I'm going to the Buffalo Bills. I have a shot at the Super Bowl. What a good team I'm going to. I think that's the way players think, how the team is first before where they live. Because a lot of them in the off season, they're going to go live wherever they want anywhere. Anyway.
Well, I agree. But, if you gave me the choice about going to Miami or going to Buffalo as an NFL player, I mean, I'd have to really consider going to Miami, in comparison to Buffalo.
Well, the way Miami's playing now, yes. I mean, it's so
well, yeah, but I don't like the cold like that. You know what I mean? I wouldn't want to be in the cold like that.
If you had a choice for the rest of for one season, let's say the NFL season began now, you could play you'd get the same amount of playing time, the same money, and the whole bit. You could go to the Jacksonville Jaguars or the Buffalo Bills. I mean, come on, you go to the Buffalo Bills. I mean, because you have Josh Allen throwing it to you, you have a great chance at the Super Bowl, as opposed to a rebuild situation in Jacksonville. I'm just saying, as a player, you're not going to think, oh, I could be in a warm climate of Jacksonville as opposed to the snow in Buffalo, because the games in Buffalo are so much bigger. There's so much more prestige there. Oh, Pax, you've had a hectic schedule. I mean, you deserve to have some sympathy. I mean, you had to do things overtime this year because of the Philadelphia Phillies World Series run, the unexpected run of the Phillies, deep into the World Series. I mean, right. I mean, if you had a chance to rest or what?
No, not really. I really haven't had a chance to rest. As I think about it, it's like literally, I still haven't recovered from the month of October into November. I mean, you think about it, baseball never went so deep into November. Like never. I mean, you saw the Yankees do it that one time where Jeter got to be called Mr. November. That was second. And that was the end of the World Series there. We went to November 7th, and literally that was because the beginning of the season wound up going to the end of the season. That's why we were in Houston at the end of the season. We were supposed to start off with Houston, in the beginning of the season. So it's funny how that all worked out. And then, like, literally, when you have the Eagles doing as well as they have, the Flyers started out amazing, so there was a lot going on.
Well,
and like I said, it still hasn't recovered yet.
It's an Eagle town. There's a lot of excitement in Philly with the Eagles right now. The rest of the team, the Sixers have become kind of dull for the moment. They've kind of flattened out. We'll see where they wind up. And the Flyers, after this nice start, they're reverting back to their old self. But, they didn't have high expectations. The Phillies, they're off to a bad start already for next year. Bryce Harper's out half the year. Not a good start. Did they try
but that was also because he got Tommy John surgery. He had Tommy John surgery, so.
No, but the point is the Phillies have a little bit of a dilemma. Do you try to bring someone else in, or do you just try to, by committee, absorb the loss for the time being and hang around fairly close to a playoff position until Harper returns? Not an easy thing figuring out the timetable. The good news is Harper's going to return at some point in the summer. And the Phillies, people are looking, they're one of the teams that they're going to probably sign a high-profile free agent, at least try to do it. And you're looking at the shortstops who are available. There hasn't been this good a crop of shortstops for a while, and it's going to probably be one of our debate questions Saturday. Carlos Correa, Trey Turner, Xander Bogaerts, Dalby Swanson, the whole bit, of guys who are out there. I mean, some really top of the line shortstops, but you're going to have, whoever you sign, you're going to have to make a major commitment to them, a lot of years, a lot of money. But those guys, I mean, all of them are pretty good. I don't think you go wrong with any name you pick out of the hat, amongst the group.
I agree. I think that you go with the guy who will sign for the least amount. Not the least amount of years, not necessarily the least amount of money. I think that you want to be able to get people here that are not willing to have to go 10 years. I'm Trey Turner for 10 years. I ain't interested in signing Bogaerts for more than 4 years, really. Like Bogaerts would only be like a 3 or 4 year signing. I don't want him here for 10 years. I don't want him here for 6 years. I only want him for 3 or 4 years. Then you have Correa. Correa is a little bit of a different. You could maybe go 7, 8 years with
Correa
him.
He has Scott Boras as his agent. And that's
He's
always
going to want 10
news.
years. Yeah, he's going to want 10
I don't
years.
like dealing. I'm going to be honest. If I'm an owner, GM owner, I don't deal with Scott Boras. If I'm the owner of a team, I'll let my GM know. I don't want you dealing with Scott Boras. I don't want you negotiating with him. But it's okay. Scott Boras can come back to us at the very end and say, look, if you sign my guy for this amount of money, this many years, we'll make a deal. At the very end, I'll listen to Scott Boras, before he signs with another team to hear what he has to say. And then if it's somehow viable, I make the deal. He kind of did that when Scott Boras, when he was an agent for Carlos Beltran. The Yankees didn't really bid on Carlos Beltran when he was a free agent, a player at one point. And before he went to Houston, Scott Boras called the Yankees and said, look, he'll sign for $2 million less a year or something, or $2 million less total. I forgot what the deal was. If you'll sign, and meaning Carlos Beltran wanted to go to the Yankees. That was his preference, but he wanted the price to be close, and the Yankees declined. But something like that, I would listen.
Well, so there you have it. But ultimately, that means that person's going to want to go there, and he's willing to take a discount to do that, even at whatever ridiculous rate that they want to talk about. I mean, that was kind of the same way with Bryce Harper. I mean, Bryce Harper had Scott Boras as his agent, and Scott Boras kept saying, hey, I want you to try to do this. He's like, no, I don't want to do that.
Yankees didn't even bid on Bryce Harper because the Yankees, in part, felt they didn't want to get played by Scott Boras because the Yankees were going to drive up the price, And the Yankees didn't want any part of it. On reflection, he would have been a great fit for the Yankees. 13 years is ridiculous, but the total sum money that Bryce Harper is getting isn't ridiculous, because if you look at it this way, if you were going to pay him $30 million a year for 10 years, and the deal breaker was you have to add in 3 more years of $10 million a year, you maybe go for it if you want him that badly. But the sum total worked out for the Phillies. But 13-year deals are ridiculous because at the end of that contract, I mean, Bryce Harper is going to be crawling. I mean, really crawling. 10-year deals. To me,
no, I think that he's going to be just a designated
enough.
hitter. I think he's going to be a designated hitter back then, in the end of that contract.
Yeah, but even with Aaron Judge, Yankees reportedly are holding firm on 8 years, and I don't blame them. If the Giants, who are going to make an offer any day now, are going to offer Aaron Judge a 10-year deal at big money, I let him walk if I'm the Yankees. I don't just give him any amount. I mean, the problem in making deals, Pags, is people are only looking at the front end of it. Right now, Aaron Judge is a superstar. He's great. What's he going to be at the end of the contract? Do you really think that 8-9 years from now, Aaron Judge is going to be nearly the player he is now defensively in the field? No, not at all. So I don't make the deal. Now, if Aaron Judge was 25 years old, not 30, I give him the 10 years, absolutely, to carry him to age 35. I can live with that, okay? The Yankees did that with Derek Jeter. Derek Jeter, people forget, he signed a 10-year deal with George Steinbrenner, but it was 25. And then the last year, the contract, Derek struggled a little. Then he had a little bit of a resurgence, but he's okay. These deals taking a guy through age 40, 41. You know, an older player that's going to be interesting is Justin Verlander. He's 39 years old. He just won the Cy Young Award. He had a great year. It's risky to sign Justin Verlander, even if you give him a 3-year deal at mega money. Do you really think he's going to perform by the 3rd year like a Cy Young candidate? Maybe he will, but I would be a little nervous. I believe it or not, I would invest money more in a younger Jacob deGrom. I shouldn't say believe it or not. DeGrom's the best pitcher in baseball when completely healthy.
Right.
But I would take a chance on the injury factor versus age factor. That's like a great debate. What's more risky?
I agree. However, when I think of Justin Verlander and I think of what he's going to be like in 3 years' time, I think, all right, you just won the Cy Young. Even if you take a small step back from winning the Cy Young to just being a great pitcher.
Good pitcher.
And then you take, well, no, I mean, he could be a great pitcher and not win the Cy Young. You then take another step back and then in year 2 and be a good pitcher. And then take another step back in that 3rd year and be an okay pitcher. As an okay pitcher, an okay Justin Verlander, in comparison to, you know, any other pitcher not named DeGrom or Scherzer, Verlander is going to, you know, strike a little bit more fear into a batter. And it's his aura, that is his history, goes into the mindset of the batter. And he's going to be able to strike or get people out in general just because of his history, not because of the way he's pitching. And I think that you buy some of that when you give him a 3-year deal. Now, would I? No. I don't think somebody who's just about to turn 40 years old works on the staff of the Phillies right now. You can't bring somebody of that age in when everybody else is so young. I mean, it's great to have a veteran presence, but that veteran presence needs to be like, Schwarber, where he's a little older, but he's still fairly young. But he's been to the World Series. He's been in the playoffs. He's been a vocal piece of the locker room, and he's not that old. When you bring somebody of really age in there, they sit by themselves. They don't deal with as many people because they don't know how to communicate as well with a 23 or 24-year-old person.
Yeah, there's certain deals, like when the Yankees signed Garrett Cole 3 years ago, the Yankees desperately needed an ace, desperately. And Garrett Cole had been on their radar forever. I think they drafted him. He went to college instead. They tried to work out deals with him, with the Pirates. Finally, they got their guy, but they signed him for 9 years, more than they wanted to. They had to add on an extra year, take him through age 36, and they made Garrett Cole the highest paid player in baseball history at the time at $36 million a year. That's going to an extreme. 9 years on a pitcher, he could get hurt, this and that. Now, Garrett Cole is 3 years into the 9-year contract. He has 6 years left. If you were the Yankees right now, hypothetically, okay, and you can get out from under the remaining 6 years at $36 million a year, no renegotiating the deal. Either you pay him the full amount, keep him the 6 years, or get rid of him. What would you do? Would you stay with him the remaining 6 years based on how he's done the last 3 years and what he could give you going forward? And keep in mind, he's still the ace of the staff, and He's been in the top 5 in the Cy Young Award voting all 3 years he's been there with the Yankees.
Yeah, that being said, I think I would keep him.
Yeah.
And here's how I feel about that. I think that you get another 3 years of him as a starting pitcher, and then you start to transition him to the close.
Maybe he could get 6 years from a starting pitcher.
You might, but I think
you're transitioning him. You're taking him out of the rotation, Pags, immediately.
I didn't say. I said you keep him for another 3 years in the starting rotation. Why don't you listen to what I say before you go and jump down my throat? I say you keep him in there for another 3 years, and then maybe start to transition him. If he's not doing his thing in 3 years from now, when you still have another 3 years left on the contract, you start to transition him to try to become a closer, because that's where I think that great pitchers have greatness throughout their entire career. The problem becomes is that they don't have the longevity of being able to pitch 100 pitches a game. That they only have that window becomes smaller to about 10 to 15 to 20 pitches a game. So at that point, you start to putting him in as a closer. I mean, right now, the Yankees could have used a closer all year long. A closer would have made a big difference. Now, you needed a starting pitcher too, and he was worthwhile being a starting pitcher. But if you were able to have somebody, again, of that level and that caliber, who's got greatness still left in him for 15 to 20 pitches a game, or 15 pitches a game, we'll say, because you got to do it on a more consistent basis, night in and night out. So you're only getting about 10 to 15 pitches a game. You want to be able to do that and get as much out of him as you possibly can. I would transition him to be a closer at that point. But that's 3 years down the line. Right now, you're right. He doesn't. Because I know Mac is not a fan of him. I know that he has done his job for the Yankees, that for these 3 years, he has been the ace of the staff. He has won his games. He has been in the top 5 or top 7 in voting for the Cy Young Award. So that being all said, he is, still a valuable asset, and you can't get rid of him because he happens to have 6 years left. If you're going to trade him away, somebody wants to take all 6 years off your hands. Well, now you still got to find somebody to replace him. And there are not many out there that can replace him.
Let me tell you, you brought a smile to my face when you said of the bullpen Yankee pitcher. I just got this feeling, no evidence, a strong feeling. Adonis Chapman is going to wind up with the Phillies. The Phillies are going to take a fly on him, thinking they could straighten him out and he could be their closer. I just get that feeling, that they feel, well, his velocity is still up. I'm going to tell you something about Chapman. If I'm a major league hitter, or let's say not a major league hitter, let's say you put a bat in my hand for fun and let me, even in batting practice, go against a major league pitcher. He's doing his best to strike me out, and all of them could strike me out easy at this stage. I would be scared to grab a bat against just about anyone to get in the box. But Chapman, I would be terrified that he's going to hit me on the head, not meaning to. He doesn't even know where he's throwing the darn ball. I mean, it's scary to face this guy. I mean,
yeah, I really hope
out of control in more ways than one.
I'm not interested in the Phillies taking a flyer on him.
I can see it. They love New York players.
They did that with the Mets. And where did that get us?
Zach Wheeler. They signed.
No, not Wheeler. Not Wheeler. I'm talking about their bullpen guy.
David Robertson.
The bullpen guy who could never get anybody out.
David Robertson.
I don't remember his name. No, he was a Yankee. He's talking to
Gregorius.
He was
Gregorius, former Yankee.
No, this was a pitcher, and I can't remember his name, but they dropped him. They dropped him at the same time. They dropped him with the same time as Didi Gregorius. They dropped the pitcher, and because he couldn't get anybody out, he was serving up home runs. It was just and they said his velocity was still up, but the Mets were happy to get rid of him, and then he couldn't get anybody out whatsoever. So, I think that when I look at that and I think about that and taking the flyer on that guy to see if you could work him out.
Pags,
I wouldn't do Chapman.
Phillies are good enough to go to the playoffs without making any moves. They could just stand pat completely.
No. I believe that we absolutely still need bullpen help. I would love a real closer. I need a real closer. I can't stand this closer by committee. I
There are not
can't
that many
stand.
of them around. They're not.
Yeah, that's the problem. That really is the problem. And that's where I would take more of a chance of somebody who was a great starting pitcher and see if you could start to transition him into somebody who's
You
didn't
need them
have
in
this.
your rotation, Pax. Now you're leaving a hole in the rotation.
No, I'm not talking about our starting pitcher.
No,
A starting
when
pitcher
you're
off of another
transitioning,
team.
it's not that easy. It's a mindset. First off, the player mentally has got to want to do it, be willing to do it. You can say, oh, you tell him you have to do it, tough luck. Yeah, he has to do it, but his mindset is messed up. It's a different thing, a different preparation. You're getting up in the bullpen, you're warming up, you're sitting down, you're warming up, you're sitting down. You know, the whole mindset is different. You're not even getting in the game till the end of the night, basically. And your routine during the day is different. I mean, you don't know whether you're pitching that day if you're in the bullpen. If you're a starter, you plan accordingly. It's a different animal, a whole different mindset.
Well, I think that the Phillies, once they get to DeGrom, then then we can almost stand pat. I think we need DeGrom. I think we need. I'd love to get a closer. Of course, you're right. There are not many out there. And then, although I think that they're going to try to get Sir Anthony Dominguez into that closer role, I think that he's probably the best one suited for it. That all being said, you still do need the shortstop. So I believe after Trey Turner or Correa sets the market, you're going to see Bogart's number come down. The reason why Bogart's number is up so high right this moment is because none of the four major shortstops have gone. So they're waiting for somebody to set the market. Once that person sets the market.
If I'm not mistaken, Bogarts is represented by Scott Boras. That's his agent. Scott Boras is also representing Carlos Correa. Those are two free agent shortstops. How's he juggling this around?
There's a reason why there hasn't been one shortstop that has gone yet. Free agent's been open.
Well, yeah, a lot of time, it's a game of chicken in a sense for certain of the elite free agents, especially in the shortstop position. You want to see what the next guy is getting. Is he setting the market for you? But then again, if someone signs a big contract, it doesn't mean the team's necessarily going to pick you up. I mean, sometimes you wait and see. Like in Carlos Correa, he wound up signing a 3-year deal with the Twins. And why the Twins wanted to do it, it's beyond me, unless they thought they could go to the World Series, because it allowed them to opt out after the first year. It allowed them to opt out after the second year. And he would have been a free agent after the third year. And he was guaranteed a total of $105,300,000. That would have been the worst case scenario if his career ended, and that's lifetime money. But
right.
All he had to have was one big year out of 3 career to keep advancing, and he was young enough, and he opts out. I don't like all this talk, oh, should the Yankees go for one of the free agent shortstops? They have 2 guys, young guys, Anthony Volpe, that's their blue chip prospect in the minors. He's going to be ready to join the Yankees by the end of next year. So what the heck are you going to be investing this major money in the free agent shortstop? And they have Peraza too, who came up to the team, who's a really good prospect. So people sometimes don't understand. The Yankees aren't going to bid on one of these free agent shortstops unless by some crazy fluke that player wants to play with the Yankees bad enough that he's willing to come down substantially in price to come to a zone that the Yankees would be very comfortable in. That would be the only way the Yankees would, look into something like that. But the Judge thing, I think, has to be settled, Pax, very soon, because if the Yankees don't settle with Judge, he's holding them hostage. They've got to make moves. They've got to know. They've got to give Judge a deadline soon. The Giants reportedly are going to come in with an offer. The Yankees could tell Judge, look, this is the deadline. This is our offer. Once you don't accept it, we both have to move on. Nothing against you, Aaron, but we have to sign other free agents. And if Judge is planning on staying with the Yankees, he's going to want them to sign other good players because he wants to win.
He saw where he was. He saw where he was at the end of that series against Houston, and that was 0 for 4. 0 in 4 chances to try to beat Houston. And what was it, all season long, they didn't beat Houston. So, I mean, ultimately, that's who you're going up against. And Houston actually signed somebody pretty good from the White Sox, did they not?
Yeah, Jose Abreu, yeah. Yes,
Yeah,
and Houston's looking to make other moves as well. They signed really good first baseman from the White Sox. Abreu is lacking a little bit defensively, but he swings a really, really good bat. His homer totals were down last year, but he's quality. That's what I like about Houston. They're kind of aggressive in the market still, making certain moves.
Well, it's easy to be aggressive when you've just won the championship. You'd be like, okay, is this an upgrade? Yeah, well, we saw what we had at first base. We traded for somebody at first base who did not work out. You know what I mean? You could say he was the comeback player of the year, but that doesn't matter because he wasn't very good. He wasn't very good at all. So let him go, let him do his thing and get somebody in his spot who's going to be significantly better than guy who batted 0% for the playoffs. Like he had a very bad.
It's loyalty as opposed to what the guy can do for you going forward. A case in point would be the Phillies with Schwarber. Schwarber was outstanding for the Phillies last year. But if they can replace him with someone else who they might think is going to be better going forward, it would be bye-bye Schwarber. They'd say, look, you were great. You've earned the right to have a nice contract and to stay with us going forward. The Yankees did a thing similar like that ages ago with Tino Martinez. They came one game, the year they lost to the Diamondbacks in 7 games in the World Series. Tino Martinez hit 34 homers, knocked in 113 runs. It was excellent defensively, but the Yankees allowed him to leave as a free agent to sign Jason Giambi because moving forward, they didn't feel that Tino Martinez would give them the same production. Okay, and that turned out to be the truth. And they later did get Martinez back for a brief stay.
Right, but there again, it's each team's going to be a little bit different in the grand scheme of things. I mean, Alec Bohm was great at the plate all season long for the most part. His defense was a little suspect. So would you go get a better defensive guy who's got a tad bit less bat at third base, or do you stay with Alec Bohm? Well, I think you stay with Alec Bohm because he's young. He's going to only get better, and his defense got better in the playoffs. He, as it went on, things are happening. Now, is he not going to make any more mistakes? Absolutely not. He's going to make mistakes because he's not a traditional third baseman. But he did such a good enough job that you have to make those decisions. Yes, I would keep him over maybe signing somebody short of like a all-star third baseman who has the potential to be a perennial all-star on an annual basis.
Have you been anything going on with soccer in Philly? Because with the World Cup going on, knockout rounds and all, and I don't follow it as carefully as I should.
So the U.S. made it through the knockout round by beating Iran 1-0. Most recently. So the MLS is done right now. Yeah, the MLS is done. The guy who scored the goal wound up was a Union player who they traded away and then wound up playing over in Europe now. There's another guy, Aronson, who was also a Union player who was playing on the U.S. national. So the championship on the same day the Phillies lost the World Series. And they lost in penalty kicks.
Did you see the tweet with Canelo Alvarez and the Argentine player Lionel Messi? What happens in the locker rooms, apparently, when the games are over, the flags are put down on the floor, like all of them, whatever. And Lionel Messi was changing, and his foot inadvertently made contact with the flag. No intention to disrespect the Mexican flag. No intention. He's an Argentine player. No intention to disrespect the Mexican flag. As the video showed, it inadvertently, made contact. So be it. So Canelo Alvarez, Mexican superstar boxer, sends out a tweet threatening Messi. He's going to go look for him. He better not see him because he's going to beat him up and this and that. And one of the other Argentine players said that Canelo in a tweet, cool it, Canelo. He wasn't disrespecting the flag. They're put down. You don't know what goes on in locker rooms during soccer. So Canelo goes off against the other Argentine player. And the Argentine player says, now you've antagonized all the people in Argentina. Argentina hates you, Canelo. Canelo is wrong in all this, by the way. So right. Canelo then comes up with a tweet, an apology later. He apologizes to Messi and the people of Argentina that they're learning experiences every day. This was his chance to learn. And I think we could kind of put it to rest. But what I didn't like with Canelo, when the Argentine player said to Canelo to cool it, Canelo tweeted back cursing him out, the Argentine. So he was building it up. I mean, this was like Kyrie Irving revisited in a sense, but in a different way. He was just, you cool it. You don't curse the other player out defending his teammate. No one was stomping on the Mexican flag or trying to disrespect it. And I think they brought it, there was such a backlash against Canelo. They brought it to its attention. Oh, man, maybe he wasn't disrespecting the flag, Canelo's thinking, and I'm threatening this guy.
Right. Yeah. So, I get nationality is a big deal. You know what I mean? Especially when you're on the world stage like this. And I can imagine, I mean, Lionel Messi is has been an elite player for a long time, and he knows the respects of the different nations and things like that. So I got to imagine that if you're saying it was inadvertent, that it absolutely was inadvertent.
He wasn't even looking down at wherever.
Right. It's just like it just kind of happened. And then now you've got somebody who looks at that as like a disrespect. And, respect is always kind of funny in the grand scheme of things. It's how somebody expects to be respected or doesn't, it isn't respected. And, you're right. In boxing, they're not putting the flags on the ground. Why are they putting the flags on the ground in the first place?
It's a locker room thing. I mean, for whatever. But it wasn't, his foot just happened to make contact. He was trying to tie his shoe. He lifted his foot up, like to tie his shoe or to take his shoe off. And the flag was somehow put right next to it, and it made contact. It was all.
Yeah, so it was a very docile situation in general that got accentuated by somebody who has no idea what's going on, just going out and saying, "Hey, you stomped on my flag, and I'm coming after you." You know what I mean? And that's kind of how we looked at it. And then once he gets the backlash from most of the general, because that's probably what occurred. That he said, "Whoa, I'm sorry."
Yeah, and Pat, I'm not even going to get into it. LeBron is in the news criticizing a 14-year-old Jerry Jones. I'm sick of LeBron. Just absolutely.
Well, I'm glad we finally got to it because it deserved about this much time.
Right, and that's all it's going to get. I am sick of LeBron. One of the all-time great players. I mean, I give him his due with that, and I'm sick of something about LeBron, something about him that I kind of like him still. I don't know why. I'm addicted to LeBron. Something about him, I like him. I get the feeling if I knew LeBron, I could actually be his friend and like him a great deal, even though he gets it. But I'm exasperated with LeBron, really exasperated.
Yeah, I think that he's stuck in a situation where he has to respond to certain things that he just doesn't,
No, he
you
doesn't. He
know,
opens his mouth when there's no need to, when it's not justified. Sometimes it is justified, but but I'm exasperated the way he would go after Jerry Jones out of nowhere.
right. No, and I understand. And on that, we have ended our 2 hours. So I was, I guess, again, I got the perfect amount of time for that. So everybody,
Exactly.
thank you very much for hanging with us today. Tomorrow, Mac will be back. Maybe I will be here too. We're
The
not
debate.
definitely.
No, it's not the debate show. It's our Friday show. I'm getting confused.
Yeah, it's Friday. So we got
It is.
Byron Williams come on. We have Keith Engel come on. I should be on here for a little while. So everybody, thank you very much for hanging with us. And we will see you guys tomorrow. Take care.